Welcome back to the Amateur Hour Sports Podcast. My name is Jacob, and we're doing Crisis Club today on a Tuesday because yesterday was the day after the Super Bowl. I had to get the Super Bowl content out, and normally I would just skip it for the week if I had something coming up on Monday, but the Monday before I also did not make an episode for Crisis Club, so I thought that I would just do it midweek this week, and hopefully next week we're back to our usual Crisis Club Monday. But if you don't know, if you're new to the show, Crisis Club Monday is this weekly segment, or almost weekly segment, where we talk about the teams in world sport in biggest crisis for that week. And there are two teams on my list today. First of all, West Ham United of the Premier League. Second of all, the Philadelphia 76ers of the NBA. And I will get to Philly, but we're going to start with West Ham in the Premier League. And often, one of the members of the show, Adam Scannon, is a humongous West Ham fan, so he is hurting at the moment because I think West Ham are going down. And I said a couple weeks ago that Bournemouth were probably going to go down instead of them, but I'm going to change it. And I'm going to give you 7 reasons why West Ham are going to go down this season. Man City on the 9th, coming up, that's who they're playing. Liverpool on the 24th. Those are back-to-back games, Man City and Liverpool. Arsenal at the Emirates, not getting Arsenal away, March 7th. Wolves, March 15th. Tottenham, March 20th. Chelsea, April 4th. Manchester United, May 9th. Essentially, in the next 7 games, they play 5 of the big 6 and Wolves. The only one that they don't have to play a big 6 or Wolves is Southampton. And then second last game of the season, they're playing Manchester United. And they only have 13 games left. So they have to play all of the big 6 and Wolves. They don't have to play Leicester again, fortunately for them. They've already played them twice. But they just blew a 3-1 lead to Brighton, knowing that they have to go through this torrid schedule coming up. Man City and Liverpool back-to-back, and then once you're done with Southampton the week after that, you play Arsenal, Wolves, Tottenham, Chelsea. Then it gets a little bit lighter. Newcastle, Burnley, Norwich, Watford, but then Manchester United, and then Villa. I think that when it comes to the Premier League, and West Ham are 1 point out of safety at the moment, I think when it comes to the Premier League, it's better to have your points early and then play the bigger teams later on, where you just know you need to battle out for that 1 point rather than needing 3 points constantly. Because if you get the easier schedule right now, you can get your points, or you should get your points, because you know that you have those big games coming up. And then when you don't need those extra 1 or 2 points, you can kind of sneak them off of a team at the top who's maybe already solidified their position, or you just get gritty and grind out that 1 point. But it's hard to do that right now, even though the alarm bell should surely be ringing. We really need to question the David Moyes hiring, because his job was to keep them up, and it doesn't look like he is doing that. Since he got hired, they won 4-0 at Bournemouth. They won in the FA Cup against Gillingham. Then they lost in the league to Sheffield. They drew Everton. Lost 4-1 to Leicester. Lost in the FA Cup to West Brom, a team in the Championship. Lost 2-0 to Liverpool, which isn't a big deal, even though they played well. And then the Brighton game, up 3-1, drawing 3-3, and there were some sloppy goals, to say the least, let in by the Hammers in that one. So that Brighton game, they had to win. There's nothing else you can really say there. They had to win that game based on the position they are in the table. Bournemouth picking up points the other day. Aston Villa have been looking better. Watford have looked great in the last few weeks with Nigel Pearson, even though they are under West Ham. That game was one you had to win, and they would have leapfrogged Brighton had they won that game. But instead, they find themselves in 18th. And I know it can get turned around easily, but when you got back-to-back games against probably the best 2 teams in England with Man City and Liverpool, and then you have to play more of the big 6 in the coming weeks, like their next 7 games are horrific. It's 5 of the big 6, no Man United, and Wolves, and the one off is Southampton, who are playing exceptionally well right now. Like, obviously, the Southampton game is easier, but they have to win that Southampton game, and they have to find some points in some of these other games, or else they're going to get into the last 6 weeks where their schedule lightens up a bit, and it's going to be too far to come back. I think West Ham are going down. I just don't think that the quality of players, like I was saying that they're going to stay because they have too much quality. Well, we're not seeing it from Felipe Anderson. We're sure as hell not seeing it from Sebastian Haller. And I don't think that they made the most of the transfer market. I think that, I think how you pronounce it, Souček, probably saying it wrong, but Souček from Slavia Prague, or Slavia Praha, one of them. He was the captain of that team. He's relatively young. I think that was a great signing. They needed to bolster the central midfield, and Thomas Souček certainly does that. From Slavia Prague, yes. Great signing there. The Jared Bowen one, I'm not 100% sure if that was the right purchase. I don't think it's a bad signing. He's doing quite well, or he did quite well with Hull this season. 16 goals, 7 assists in the 29 matches he played in the championship. That's fairly impressive for a 23-year-old. I'm not completely sold on him at the next level, and I don't think that they need more wingers. Like, they've got so many wingers already. Like, Masuaku and Felipe Anderson have been playing on the left. You've got Antonio who can play on the right. You've got Snodgrass who's been playing very well. Yarmolenko when he's fit. Like, did you really need another winger? I think right back. Like, I think Ryan Fredericks is just fast. I don't necessarily think he's exactly good enough for the Premier League. And Zabaleta is quite past it. We know what he brings to a club, but he should not be starting. So right back was something they needed to fix, and maybe bring in I don't know if they even needed another striker. Like, the amount of strikers this club buys, I don't think a winger was the right decision. I think maybe he could add a new element. We'll see. It remains to be seen. But I think that the Thomas Souček signing was a very good signing. But this schedule, it's not really about West Ham as a club and about who they have. This schedule, those 7 teams that they have to play still in the remaining 13 games, 6 of those 7 coming in the next 7 game weeks. Unfortunately, I see the demise of this club to the championship, and honestly, I don't see this team coming back up. Teams who typically have like a high payroll, like when Stoke City went down, that kind of team is usually the one that really struggles to get back up, because there's all these financial problems, not being able to really bring in new guys, and you got to clear out everybody. There's a lot of stuff in the summer affecting the mentality of the club. This is the kind of team that doesn't come back up right away. And if they do go down, which I think they will at this point, I think they will remain in the championship for at least a year. But because of the amount of money coming with the club and the fact that they play in such a big stadium, they have a big market, there's a big fan base, I think that they will eventually return if they do go down. But I just don't think it will be within 1 year, unfortunately, for West Ham fans listening. Let me know what you think about West Ham in the comments or on Twitter or Instagram at AmateurPDC while we're there. But let's move on to the second crisis club of the week, the Philadelphia 76ers. Yesterday, they lost by 36 points to the Miami Heat at Miami. The 76ers, by the way, this season, they're great at home. 22-2 at home. That's very good. But away from home, the NBA Finals this year, even though I didn't think they'd win the East in the regular season, I thought they would win it in the playoffs. 9-18 away from home. And they've lost 3 games in a row. They lost by 36, like I said, to the Heat. They lost by 21 to the Celtics. And they lost by 10 to the bottom-feeding Atlanta Hawks. This team has taken quite a plunge since their huge win over the Bucks on Christmas Day. It hasn't been great since then. They seem to be losing to a lot of the teams that they may match up with in the playoffs. Since that Christmas Day game, they've lost to the Raptors, they've lost to the Heat, they lost to the Celtics, they lost to the Pacers. It's not looking good right now. And there's constant talk about whether or not Ben Simmons can play with Joel Embiid, and I don't think that those two can coexist on a very successful franchise based on what we've seen, because Ben Simmons is really refusing to progress his game. He's remained the same over the last 3 years in a lot of stats like points, assists, rebounds, player efficiency. He's refusing to shoot threes, even though Brett Brown, the Philadelphia 76ers coach, has urged him to start shooting more. And Joel Embiid's space is taken away by Ben Simmons because you can sag off Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons, even though he's a great defender, got dusted by Jimmy Butler yesterday when Ben Simmons tried to sag off and defend Jimmy Butler like somebody would defend Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons defended somebody the way that you should defend Ben Simmons, and Jimmy Butler iced him with a 3 there. So, 6th in the East. If the playoffs started today, they would be playing the Celtics. They would not win that series unless they can turn it around. First round might be the exit because they're probably going to have to play against somebody like the Raptors, the Celtics, the Heat. And I think the Celtics and Heat would be able to beat them. And I think that maybe the Raptors would as well. Because the Raptors, by the way, the Toronto Raptors started last season with Kawhi Leonard, 36-14. This year, without Kawhi Leonard, they're 36-14. Don't sleep on the Toronto Raptors. They could beat the 76ers in the playoffs. But the Celtics and Heat definitely would beat. I think they would definitely beat the 76ers in the playoffs. They need to address the issues. They don't have a shooter. They could do with better perimeter defending. They might acquire Covington, but I don't think trading away a first round pick for Covington is going to answer all the problems. They need shooters. They need at least one specialist shooter. They need somebody like a Duncan Robinson on their team. Somebody who is a specialist, like somebody like, I don't know, JJ Redick, a specialist at threes. It's almost like they had JJ Redick last season and they let him walk. So they gave huge contracts to Tobias Harris. They gave huge contract to Al Horford, and Tobias Harris has had put up some good numbers this season. I've talked highly about him. He's been decent, Tobias Harris. 19 points a game, 47% shooting. Points don't tell the entire tale with Tobias Harris, though. But Al Horford, man, that guy has been bad this season. And that contract looks really bad at the moment. It kind of handcuffs the 76ers with what they can do as the trade deadline approaches, because, like I was saying, there are a lot of issues that need to be sorted. And it's going to be very difficult for them to sort them because, in my opinion, they won't acquire a shooter. Because the only trade talk right now coming up to the trade deadline is Robert Covington. And that's not, the complete solution to their problems. And even if they do acquire Covington, they may not even acquire Robert Covington the way like a lot of teams are kind of hunting him down. So there's going to be big problems for the 76ers as we get into the run-in. And I'm not sure who the blame is on. Because, I think, part of the blame is on the front office for not assembling a team that caters towards Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid with lack of shooters. I understand why they may want to try to get them to exist together on a successful team, because why wouldn't you? Look how talented these guys are. Their fault for not acquiring shooters. It's Brett Brown's fault for not getting the most out of Ben Simmons this season and for not getting the most out of Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid has been formidable, but we know Joel Embiid has that little bit extra to give that he isn't giving. We know he can be more. We know he can get in the paint and get to the rim a little bit more, put up more points per game. We know that. Front office as well for giving away bad contracts to, Tobias Harris, is as fine as he's been, is not a max contract player, and Al Horford is certainly making too much money. So maybe you could look there. You could look at Brett Brown. Maybe you could look at Ben Simmons for not progressing, for not shooting more. But I think ultimately it's on the front office. They haven't given Brett Brown the pieces to really succeed, and I think that Brett Brown isn't really getting the best out of its players. It's those two in a little bit of conjoined together, because Brett Brown has enough talent to work with to be higher up in the East than 6th place at the moment. And they're a little bit of ways back from 4th place. They're 4 games back, 3.5 games back of that spot. So it's manageable to come back there, but the way they're playing on the road, 9-18, it doesn't really look like that is going to happen. There's been no indication that they are going to all of a sudden take over because they're playing the Bucks next. Playing at home, but I think they're still going to lose that game. Then they're playing the Grizzlies away, who've been tremendous recently. Then the Bulls away. They could probably win that, but their away record isn't doing them any favors. Then they play the Clippers at the Staples Center. Then they're playing Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. Like there's a decently tough schedule at the moment, and they haven't been good recently, losing 3 in a row. So I'm not sure what to expect from this Philadelphia 76ers team. I had them coming out of the East at the start of the year, but I don't really see it anymore. It's got to be the Bucks, and I don't even see the Sixers coming out of the first round the way they're playing at the moment. So lots of things need to change. They have to make some moves at the deadline, and if ultimately their goals don't come to fruition at the end of the season, they got to look at Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and ask, can we win with both of these guys on the same team? And I think, and I've said this on the podcast before in a past episode, that I don't think they can. I think there is a ceiling when it comes to the potential of the Philadelphia 76ers with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid playing together, especially if Ben Simmons is going to sulk and refuse to shoot a 3. He's only attempted 5 this season. He hit 2, but he's only attempted 5, and it's been like that for weeks. He hasn't attempted 1 in weeks. So that's the reality for the 76ers. It's an absolute crisis there because they should be right at the top of the East, and they aren't. They could have won an NBA championship last year. If Kawhi shot doesn't go in, maybe they get to the finals. So a lot needs to be done there, but I think, ultimately they're going to be in the playoffs, and once you're in the playoffs, you just need to win there. It doesn't really matter. If you make it, and then you progress from there. So not as big of a crisis as West Ham United. Man, West Ham, I feel for them because I really think that they are going to go down. But that will wrap up this episode. Let me know what you think about the 76ers in the comments or on Twitter or Instagram at AmateurPDC. All of the links will be in the description or in the episode description on Spotify. Follow us on Spotify. Follow us on Apple Podcast. Go shop the merch. Links in the description as well for that. Stickers, water bottles, travel mugs, clocks, whole bunch of stuff. Go check that out. And as usual, we post every single day. So keep coming back for that daily content, daily sports podcast episodes. We will see you again tomorrow.